You can go watch a stunt show at Disney, or you can come be in the stunt show here. Come here. If you want to be a filmmaker, this is the place to come to figure out where you want to be.
If you're going to go from worth zero to worth $2 or $3 million, you're going to have to be an expert in something. And that means you have to be like the top, whatever percent, that top kind of 1-2% of that industry.
Stunt people are human beings. People have a misconception about stunt people. They think we do all this dangerous stuff all the time and we risk our lives and this and that, which we do occasionally. But for the most part, what we're doing is more like a magic act than a daredevil performance.
Now you're moving from being the stunt person to being the
coordinator. It's taken me years to figure out how to do this stuff. I've been doing this for over 40 years and I've never broken a bone or been seriously injured. Nobody's ever died on a show that I've ever worked on.
Where is the film industry at today? If you could go back and give your younger self advice, what would it be? And it doesn't have to be financial advice. So tell us a little bit about the new business that you're starting. Get into that kind of what's the pieces that you're finding kind of exciting, and because now you're moving from being the stunt person to being the
coordinator.
The coordinator, but even more than that is running a business. I mean, the whole kind of how do you, so tell me a little bit about how you're organizing that. When you talk about, I don't think we were on cam. I don't think we were Zooming.
No, we weren't on camera.
When you talked about, you could do your whole business plan. So it sounds like you had a whole strategy that you'd thought about for years, and now you're starting to execute against it.
Exactly. I've been running Action Pack for almost 30 years, a little more than 30 years. And I've been doing it with my own money. I didn't have any investors or anything like that. So I was building and designing equipment. All the equipment we used through Action Pack was built and designed by me and tested by me because I use it. It's not, I didn't build it for other people to use. I built it for me because I saw that there were a lot of size 12 boots and size 2 hats building equipment in the stunt business that just didn't work, or it malfunctioned, or it was just, it was questionable. And, they had hair triggers on things that didn't need hair triggers, and just, safety issues. And so I started, designing all my own stuff. My airbags are the safest airbags on the market. You can land anywhere in my airbag and it'll catch you like a glove. Doesn't matter if you're on target or not. Which the old style bags, if you didn't hit the middle, they'd dump you on the ground. And, my best friend died because of that. And so I designed a bag that doesn't do that, and, the technology is something that's advancing. I've been wanting to, move that equipment into the public sector. In other words, the airbags can be used by fire departments for high angle rescue, but the airbags that I use for stunt work are intentionally designed to inflate slowly because I don't want anybody rushing me in between takes to do a high fall. So the bag takes a while to blow up, right? If I put a more powerful blower on it, that thing will inflate in, 10 seconds, right? Which is what you need for high angle rescue. If you're rescuing people out of burning buildings, you can't be waiting for the airbag to inflate.
Right.
Right. And so I'm designing, taking the designs that we're using in the film industry to save lives and applying it to the general public or fire departments, first responders, people like that, the military applications, all that type of thing. So we're working on getting that type of marketing out there. But I needed a facility to build this stuff. Everything I have right now is prototypes. They all work, but I haven't mass produced them because there just wasn't a need for it, because I was just using it all myself. So I want to expand this so that we can then, supply people all over the world with this safer equipment.
So go outside of just the stunt business, but actually start supplying a variety of different businesses.
Absolutely. Well, most
technology.
Of the equipment, like the personal equipment that we use, the elbow pads and knee pads and spine pads, all that stuff, those all come from different disciplines. So, we've got a retail component that I'm working on to expand that so that, motorcycle riders can get their motorcycle leathers and pads and all that stuff from us. I have a distribution agreement with Nomex provider, people that supply Nomex underwear, fireproof underwear for race car drivers and firemen and things like that. We build and design custom stuff for those types of things to do fire burns with, but it's stuff that people can use in real life. And then, all the automotive things that are available, all the systems that we, specialized systems that we put in cars. Other people can put them in their cars, roll cages, that type of thing. We want to expand everything, the elbow pads and knee pads, all that kind of stuff for skateboarders and, building specialized skydiving equipment. Just, we want to branch out into all that so that we're not just dependent on the film industry.
Uh,
We can
that
kind of
makes sense.
cross market, so we're selling to not just the film industry, but everybody that needs the equipment.
So what was your presentation to 1 Million Cup? Was that what it was around? What was your kind of
No,
focus?
that was the new endeavor here at we're calling it Apex Film Ranch, and
Okay.
what we're doing here is preserving the legacy of Kim Kahana. Kim Kahana Sr. was the founder of Kahana Stunt School back in 1972, I believe it was, and he trained over 35,000 stunt performers over the years, and I was one of them. I went there in 1982 when they were still in Chatsworth, California. And then they moved the operation to Florida about 35 years ago. And so he passed away 2 years ago. And I was asked to come out and help reconstitute this facility and get it back up and running. Part of the plan is to not only do a stunt school, but to also do stunt experiences. So if there are people out there who have always wanted to be a stunt performer, but just never pursued it and feel regret or whatever that they didn't do it, come on out to the ranch and we'll let you be a stunt guy for a week. And then, you can go back to doing whatever it is you
Oh,
do.
that's a good idea.
Okay, so it's a bucket list kind of a thing, and
Yeah.
we'll put you through the intensive for 2 days, and then we'll put the scene together for 3 days, shoot it like a movie, put you in a dressing room and a trailer, and have we'll do it just like you were on a real movie set, and you can come out and be a stunt guy and do a famous stunt scene from whatever movie you want to do. We can do Star Wars or Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, or whatever you want to do. So.
So that's a pretty good idea, especially being in Florida, because people come down here on vacation and all the
Exactly.
kids go to Disney World. And if, somebody, wants to go up and spend a day at the stunt ranch or 2 days at the stunt
Right. Yeah.
ranch.
You can go watch a stunt show at Disney, or you can come be in the stunt show here.
Yeah, exactly. That's a pretty good idea. So that was, what kind of feedback did they give you on that idea? Like the,
They gave me a lot of really good ideas to get in touch with the local colleges and things like that to make
uh,
sure that the film schools and things know we're here. We're also planning on branching out not just into stunts, but we want to teach filmmaking in general. So if you want to be a cameraman, if you want to be a grip, if you want to do lighting or sound or makeup or wardrobe or whatever, we want to facilitate instruction in those areas as well, so that people can, come here. If you want to be a filmmaker, this is the place to come to figure out where you want to be. When I was working with Movie Institute in Dallas, who I'm still working with, we were designed, it was a 501(c)(3) that was designed for teaching kids how to make movies. And so we built a small studio for kids. So the kids, if they had an idea for a short film or something, they could rent space at our place, have all the equipment, cameras, lighting, everything they needed to do whatever it is they wanted to do. Because when Keith Duncan, who was the founder, was a kid, he used to make his little 8 millimeter movies, and he'd have to do it wherever he could do it, and on whatever, he didn't have a studio, he didn't have the right equipment, he just did it with whatever he could. So he really had a heart for opening up a place to let kids start doing this stuff young, so that they can understand what it takes. And then every year we would do Camp Hollywood. Right about this time of year, we do Camp Hollywood, where the kids come in. We have about 100, 120 kids come in, and we break them up into teams of three, and they form their own production companies. And they film.
where do they stay if they come up there?
Um,
Just different
he,
places.
if we're doing it here, we're working on getting a dorm set up here so that people can stay on the ranch, or we've got associations with different bed and breakfast, type places that people can stay. The Camp Hollywood thing was a day camp, so that was, and it was being done in Dallas, so we had a huge market for that, and so people would come in the morning and go home at night, but they
Here
come.
you haven't quite. That's on the business. That's on the aspiration. You're going to build
Yeah,
that into the business plan.
right. We want to incorporate that into what we're
So
doing here.
So what are you doing about this? Would be something most funny small businesses would want to know. And so, what about how are you raising money? How are you doing the money piece? Because everything you just rattled off there, that's a pretty
It
big
requires a lot of
list,
money.
a
Yeah,
lot of money.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
I'm not doing this with my money this time.
Okay.
I'm working with Sandra Kahana. We're leveraging the property to hopefully raise enough money to get the ball rolling, and then we're going to go after investors to, see if we can get some people to partner with us.
Okay.
We're looking at a larger piece of property, and we're hoping that we'll be able to partner with the owner of that property and just let them retain ownership while we do a lease or whatever from them and build a pretty good sized studio facility. I mean, it's with the stuff that's happening with Movie Institute in Dallas, and we're already partnered with them. To have a satellite studio in Florida would be perfect. So we're working on
Yeah.
that deal right
And Dallas, Orlando's perfect because they're only an hour and a half,
now. Right.
easy flights, easy to kind
Yeah,
of move back and forth. So I mean,
exactly. And they
that's
don't
that's a good partner.
this location that I'm sitting in the middle of Jurassic Park right now.
Uh-huh.
And that's what this place looks like. Okay. It's
Right.
got, the palm trees and the jungle vegetation and all this stuff that you just don't have in Dallas.
Right.
Right. They have everything else in Texas, but this they don't have.
Yeah.
So, and I have, 9 pet alligators now. So, hey,
Yeah, no, I mean, where you're at is a very, very good location.
yeah,
I mean, from a
yeah.
central Florida perspective.
Right, 40
So,
minutes from the airport if somebody wants to come in, it's really nice. And
so,
I think we're going to be able to make this thing work. And we also want to make it a destination, a vacation destination. If people want to come and just get away for a while, this property is beautiful. People can just come and stay in our tiny houses that we're going to build and just kind of hang out and
so,
vacation, ride horses, ride motorcycles, do whatever you want to do here.
so you have a lot of stuff on the list. What's kind of your next 6 months?
My next my next six
So what are
months
you
is to
kind of focusing on? Kind of what part are you
The
kind
thing,
of,
the thing I'm focusing on most is the school, is getting the stunt training up and running because that's what I was doing in Dallas, and it was very successful in
and that's
Dallas.
where you
And
know and can make money
and
quick,
I
right?
know that can generate income, and I know people want to do it, especially the stunt experience thing. I was hosting bar fights in Dallas where people would come in the morning, learn how to do all the fight scenes, and then we would choreograph a giant bar fight in a bar on a Sunday afternoon. And it was huge. We'd have 15, 20 people signed up on any given, day and just shoot the whole thing just like a movie. And they breaking bottles and chairs and pool cues and all kinds of stuff and beating each other up and throwing each other over bars, just having a ball. And I'd hire maybe 3 or 4 stunt guys to come in, and the rest would all be just people that wanted to do a bar fight and not go to jail.
Yeah,
So,
cool.
and people had a lot of, I had a guy that was in the first bar fight that I did that was quadriplegic in a wheelchair, an electric wheelchair. And his mother came to me and said, he really wants to do this. And I said, well, that's fine. Let's sign him up. And she said, well, he's in a wheelchair. I said, that's fine. I've always wanted to have a tank in one of my bar fights. This is great.
That's awesome. Wow, that's a fantastic story. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's shift gears, kind of the last kind of section of this. Let's talk about what do you see in AI? What role is AI playing, not in the stunt business necessarily, but as a business person? How do you see AI kind of helping you execute against that whole big old long list of stuff that you're doing,
Yeah. I
including money?
Part of the reason I have that big long list of things is because of AI, because
Okay.
I plugged into are we okay to say which ones I'm using, or is
Oh
that
yeah, yeah, yeah.
okay? Yeah. I plugged into Grok my original business plan, which was all Texas centric, and I said, rewrite this plan for Florida. And in 5 minutes, it kicked out a brand new business plan for Florida and
Yeah,
included all the
nice.
incentives and all the, demographics and what was going on in the film industry. And I mean, everything. I mean, I had a pretty extensive business plan, so it had a good framework to work from, but it switched everything over to Florida. And it all made, I read through it. It was all right on the money. And so that saved me probably 2 weeks worth of research and looking through numbers and rehashing everything. And then when I'm putting my business documents together, I can put my business document together and then plug it into Grok and say, fix this.
Yeah.
You know what I
And
mean?
did, did I had two questions. Did it do the research for Central Florida? Because I don't know how big Central Florida is from movies, but did it do that? And then second, did it prioritize? Did it say, John, here's the three things you need to do in the next month, next 6 months, next
It
year?
it did help with that because this is a four-phase plan. So, the first phase is getting the school up and running, getting the property, put back together because this place got wrecked by a hurricane. So I'm having to clean up a lot of stuff. I kept hearing about this lagoon that was out here, and I'm like, we can't get to it because there's a giant tree across the path to the lagoon. So this week, I went out there with the tractor and got that tree out of the way. You know what I mean? So we're kind of working on getting that cleaned up, getting the promotion out there, getting the business plan, or I mean the business partnership paperwork dialed in so that the Kahana Stunt Ranch, so that Sandra still retains everything she's bringing to the table, and I still retain everything I'm bringing to the table, all my equipment and all that kind of stuff. To have an exit strategy in case something just doesn't work out. If we get slammed with two or three hurricanes in a row, this isn't going to work. It's just, and you just never know about that kind of stuff. I mean,
Right.
I was sitting in the house the other day, and Sandra was standing on the other side of the room, and I said, "We just had an earthquake." And she's like, "That's crazy. We don't have earthquakes in Florida." It's like that night on the news. Yeah, we just had an earthquake in Florida. I'm like,
My
"Oh,
wife
great."
did
Yeah.
feel it. I didn't
One
feel it, but
one of
my
the
wife
reasons I
did.
left California was because of the Northridge earthquake. I did not
Yeah.
want to be there if that wasn't the big one, because that's going to be ugly. But anyway, back on track here. As far as the AI stuff, obviously is replacing a lot of stunt work. It's making it really hard for the stunt guys to make a living because it's a lot of the stuff that we do or that we have done in the past just isn't necessary anymore
Goes
with
to the
AI.
technology conversation
Yeah,
we had
yeah,
earlier.
yeah, exactly. And, not only that, but I remember almost 35, 40 years ago, about 35 years ago, we were having a conversation at the National League of SAG Stunt Performers in California about CGI. And it was like, oh yeah, it's going to take over the stunt business. It's going to take over. They're not going to need stunt guys anymore. And we were trying to figure out how to get stunt coordinator contracts in place at that time. We didn't have a stunt coordinator contract through SAG because Warner Brothers said we were management. It's like, we're not management. We don't pay anybody. What are you talking about? Um, we're just puppeteers. We use live puppets. That's all. But because we weren't on camera, they said we were management, which was ridiculous. So we had to fight against that to get the stunt coordinator contract jurisdiction from Screen Actors Guild. And they were talking about we wanted to use the reuse of stunts as leverage. In other words, instead of having to pay, it used to be you could negotiate. If somebody wanted to use your stunt in another show, they would have to negotiate with you to use that stunt. And it could be up to the amount that you got paid originally to do it. So if you did a, $20,000 car crash, you could get $20,000 for reuse on that, even though you're not risking your life anymore. And we were like, well,
Wow.
how many of you people are getting these reuse deals? And nobody raised their hand. And so we're like, why don't we just give it to the producers and say, look, you pay us a daily rate, whatever the daily rate SAG rate is for that thing and the residuals that go along with it, and you can have the footage, right? And that way we'll get more of that kind of stuff going on. If they're going to reuse it, we might as well make it easy for them and get paid rather than having them try to steal it. And one of the guys goes, well, that stuff's 10 years away. They're not going to be able to change up that footage and make it match. And one of the other guys stood up and goes, nope, happened to me yesterday.
Wow.
He did a horseball on the movie El Gringo and was flipping channels and saw his horseball in an episode of Young Indiana Jones, and he never worked on Young Indiana Jones. He's like, "What the heck, man? That's my horseball. Why? What the?" And it was a completely different set, complete like more horses in the scene. There was a train that wasn't there. It was all this stuff, and he's like, they just added all this digital
And
stuff.
how long ago was that?
That was 35 years ago.
So think about
Yeah,
today. Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
exactly, exactly. And they were trying to steal it. He ended up getting triple damages from the production company because they didn't even call him. They just used it. They figured he'd never notice it. And I
Yeah.
mean, God only knows how much of that stuff they got away with before somebody
And
finally,
and using AI is just shockingly easy. But
yeah,
to your point, you still got to figure out how are you guys going to deal with that? Well, what's your strategy around dealing as a stunt coordinator? What's kind of your strategy around AI?
Well, my first strategy is not to piss it off, because apparently,
Right.
if you try to turn the AI off, it'll figure out how to turn you off. So I'm in a position where AI could turn me off real easily.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. I was just watching a thing this morning. This guy was doing one of those self-driving cars or whatever, and he told it that he was going to turn off the AI to the car, and the car started formulating how he was going to crash the car and kill the driver. So like, it's kind of spooky. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but the way we're planning on, we've just got to go with the technology and see where it's going to go. It's so hard to figure, you can't predict where this stuff is going to go really, other than just watching, Terminator, and that's where it's going. But who knew that was a documentary? But the main thing I'm trying to do is figuring out how it's here. There's nothing I can do about it, so I might as well figure out how to use it.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
can use it for equipment design. I can pop equipment design into AI and have it pop out something that's infinitely safer than what I came up with. If I tell it this is what I'm trying to prevent from happening. Here's the equipment that does it. What do I need to change? And it'll go through and give you all kinds of different design concepts, you know. So I want to use it to make my business safer.
Yeah, that's
I
a
guess
good
that's
strategy.
the bottom line, you know. And I'm still not sure about the whole script writing thing. It's coming up with its own stories and all that kind of stuff, and it's grabbing stuff. The problem with the AI formula is that it uses other people's ideas to come up with what it's doing. So,
Totally.
I mean, it's like, when does that become a copyright problem?
Right.
And I think that's going to be the big challenge down the road, is how do you know if the one scene in the movie that this thing wrote came out of your screenplay, but it's not the same screenplay?